So let me close the thought by saying this before I let go of the original point. Dr. Ben is on record telling us that Kemet cannot be said to be the first civilization. In fact, I'll use Dr. Ben's words verbatim when he says, saying that Kemet is the oldest civilization or the first civilization is like saying that a rabbit is a pigeon. And in his own words, he says you couldn't be further removed from the truth. Then he goes on to say we cannot place Kemet during or before the Sibyllian period. The Sibyllian period is 10,000 BC. Right. Dr. Ben says we cannot place Kemet during or before that.
Most people speak about Egypt as if Egypt was the first civilization or society in Egypt or in Africa. And that couldn't be more false than saying that a rabbit is a pigeon. Egypt is one of the last of the ancient cultures, if not the last along the Nile. But that it is the society in where most of the artifacts have remained because it was the first of the African society and the societies of the entire world to place their recordings in stone. That's the uniqueness of Egypt. We cannot place Egypt before the Sibyllian period, Sibyllian first, second, and third.
So again, I ask you, why is Brother Jabari showing us Lucy? You got to watch these ninjas because they're very slick. Because these ninjas will get on camera and tell you that we are not to pay any respect to the tomhu. And if these ninjas catch you saying names like the Book of the Dead or Osiris, they're going to say, no, you mean the Pert Em Heru. No, you mean Asar. Why are you using the tomhu's name and his narrative? I have a bigger question for you. Why did you create the tomhu?
I have a bigger question for you. Why did you create the tomhu?
Because in Kemetic tradition, you see, it's a problem when Hebrews start learning that metaneta. I'm telling you, people, go out and research to the point of becoming immersed in the culture and tradition of these people when you want to combat the ideas that they set forth to put down those ideals that you believe and hold dear to you. Because in doing so, you'll come out with some smooth checkmates. One which we're going to put on camera real quick that we talked about for a couple months now. So Brother Jabari talks about the tomhu extensively. One of the first times that we see the name tomhu referenced and mentioned is in the work of Sheikh Anta Diop, who is considered one of the mighty three, along with Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark. In his book, Sheikh Anta Diop, Barbarism and Civilization, he talks about the origin of the term tomhu. And he shows you that when Francois Champollion, who is credited with translating the Rosetta Stone, which is basically the first decipherment of the metaneta after being 2,000 years a dead, non-spoken language in those regions, Champollion stumbles upon some material that says that Europeans were created by the people of Kemet. And when we're talking about created, we're actually talking about like gene splicing until we get what we want. Right. And the Kemet too described them as being very lackluster when it comes to the fundamental premises that underlie or pervade the thought process of African people. So what am I using all of that dragged out terminology to say? These guys didn't create a super intelligent being. They're talking about they created a monster. They created a genetic deadbeat purposely. So I have a question. Every time Brother Jabari speaks of the tomhu, what is underlying his speech is the very fact that the people of Kemet are on paper credited as producing those people. So that means that when they get on camera and they talk about blacks in America who call themselves Hebrew Israelites are following the white man's religion and the white man's book, the Bible, that we are doing a greater disservice to Africa in doing so. I ask a simple question. Is it a greater disservice to follow the white man or to create him? Is it a greater disservice to follow evil, or is it a greater disservice to introduce evil? I have a question. These are just questions.
Right.
Because if the tomhu was designed to bring destruction and death to black people, how can we in the same instance speak of Kemetic legacy as being something to brag about? Why would you even remind the people of the name tomhu? Did you not think some of us were smart enough to learn the origins of it? I mean, these guys checkmate themselves by themselves. You got to watch these ninjas.
So where is Zion Lexx now in the conscious community?
Oh, man.
What's next for Zion Lexx in the conscious community? Because it seemed like you've reached the pinnacle.
Right.
I will say that you've absolutely done your homework.
Definitely.
Everyone you've sat down with, you've been a problem to.
That's right. We even forced Polight to come out and make some statements, right?
What is there left for Brother Zion Lexx in the conscious community?
Look, let me first answer that by saying, shout out to Brother Polight, who was in New York City recently, and we caught up, we spoke. Brother Polight was asked to chime in on who does he think is currently making the most noise in the conscious community when it comes to lectures, events, and debates, but debates especially. You know who this brother says, who happens to be my nemesis. You know what this brother says, who happens to be one of the people that have had one of the most nastiest outbursts in the community with. You know what he says? He says Zion Lexx. And he does it in such a way that it both gives credit as well as undermines to an extent. But he was still bothfully true. And I don't blame him in his analogy. He compared where he sees me now to basketball. And he said that I would give Zion Lexx the most improved player. And he says, and this is his response, I want people to pay attention to this intelligent man telling you who thinks he's the best, telling you who he thinks is the best debater, while at the same time trying his best not to give full credit. But he's still answering the way that it should be by telling you it's me. What am I saying all that to say? The brother gave me the respect that I was due. He threw in some language that kind of diminished, whitewashed, or devalued some of the credit that I should have been given. But nonetheless, I think that a lot of his analogy was very accurate. He said you're looking at a more refined man. You're looking at a man that can control his anger. You're looking at a Zion Lexx that when he's calm, he's a problem. And this is the goddamn truth. You've told me this yourself. You said, you had him. You got pissed off. You had him. You cursed him out. And this is true. And you know what? I don't mind saying in this moment and reminding people,
Right.
I'm human. I have flaws.
That's right.
They say for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. My problem is my reactions are not always equal. That's my problem, and I'll give the world that. But you know,
A different type of Hebrew.
I'm a different type of Hebrew. I already told y'all. You know, we are different type of Hebrews, because in this moment I want to give light to my community. We come from a community that is no joke. We come from a long line of teachers and students that, make no mistake about it, when we get in these type of settings, we come in to eat food, so to speak. We're not coming to play games. You know, we are that lion in the midst of a den of wolves. And while the wolves are looking around and seeing competition when we walk in, we looking around and all we see is food. That's how we were raised. So saying that to say, what's next for me? I decided after debating Brother Jabari that I actually don't want to debate anymore unless it's on the collegiate level for real, where I'm debating professors, and individuals who really have that academic record that can be traced and verified, like grandmaster teachers in the community, Mfudiji. I don't think after debating Brother Jabari, I should be sitting down with Brother Garfield. Mathematically speaking, that don't add up. That don't make no sense. So at this point, where I'm at when it comes to debating is I have that John Henry Clark spirit, where I can say right now with full authority, Oh, I debate my equals. All else I teach. So if you want to debate me and I don't consider you my equal, you got to move on. It doesn't mean that I'm better than you, but this is the way I'm feeling at the moment. I'm only debating my equals. All else I teach. And with that being said, I still would love to debate Brother Polight. And I think that says a lot without saying much more.
You know how that go between you and him, but it's good that to know that you and him are able to discuss and talk, and he's able to say kind words about you. And I think in the overall picture, at the end of it all, we're all black people living in America, going through the same struggles, whether you're Kemet, whether you're Hebrew, whether you're whatever. It comes a point where we have to put all those differences aside and realize what's the greater, you know, the greater good at the point, because there's a lot of things coming at us just because of the color of our skin. So, you know, after a while, we still have to come together and acknowledge and know what's good and what's not.